Have you ever stopped to think about the little choices you make every day? Why you grabbed the oat milk latte instead of the cappuccino, or decided on a movie night in instead of going out. They feel personal, maybe even a little random. But what if I told you there's a hidden economic logic driving pretty much all of them? Well, today, we're going to uncover those invisible rules that govern how we all choose.
So, to kick things off, let me throw a real-world puzzle at you. Think back to the Great Recession, around 2008-2009. Times were tough. People everywhere were tightening their belts, cutting spending left and right. And yet, one specific category didn't just survive, it absolutely boomed. We're talking an 18% jump in the US alone. Any ideas what it was?
Now, the obvious answers? They're not it.
It wasn't groceries.
In fact, household food spending actually went down. And entertainment? No way. That was one of the first things to go. So what on earth would people spend more money on when they had less of it? To solve this puzzle, we first need to get a handle on the basic tools of choice.
To really get to the bottom of any choice, economists start with two really simple ideas: what you can afford and what actually makes you happy. So let's break those down. First up is something called the budget constraint. I know, that sounds super technical, right? But it's actually simple. It's just all the different combinations of stuff you can possibly buy with the money you've got. The best way to picture it is like your own personal spending bubble. You can pick anything you want inside that bubble, but you just can't go outside of it.
Let's make this real. Meet Jose. He's got $56 of fun money to spend this week. Now, Jose's two passions are cool t-shirts, which are $14 each, and going to the movies, which cost $7 a pop. So with his $56, he could go all in on t-shirts and get 4 of them, or he could become a total movie buff and see 8 movies. Or, some combination in between. That's his budget bubble.
Okay, now for the second tool, happiness. Economists have a slightly weird word for this. They call it utility. Let's just pretend for a second we can measure satisfaction in units called utils. So Jose's first t-shirt, that gives him a huge boost. 22 utils of pure happiness. It's awesome. The second one is great too. It adds another 21. The third, another 20. I think you can see where this is going.
And this brings us to one of the most fundamental laws in all of economics, diminishing marginal utility. It's a fancy way of saying that the more you have of something, the less satisfaction you get from getting one more. I mean, think about it. That first slice of pizza is heaven, right? The 8th slice? Not so much. Jose's 4th t-shirt's still nice, but it just doesn't give him that same incredible jolt of joy as the first one did. So, Jose's got his budget bubble. He knows what makes him happy. Now for the million-dollar question. How does he pick the one perfect combination of t-shirts and movies that makes him the absolute happiest he can be?
Well, he could do it the long way. He could start by thinking, okay, what if I buy 4 t-shirts? Then he'd ask himself, what if I give up that last t-shirt, the one that gives me the least happiness, and I use that $14 to go see 2 movies instead? He'd have to compare the happiness he loses from the shirt to the happiness he gains from the movies. But there is a much, much smarter way to do this. And honestly, this is the secret sauce. It's not about which item gives you more happiness overall. No, it's about which one gives you more happiness for every single dollar you spend. That's the real game changer.
So let's actually run the numbers. His first movie gives him about 2.3 utils for every dollar. His first t-shirt, only 1.6. So the choice is a no-brainer. He should buy that movie ticket. It's just a better deal, happiness-wise. And he'll keep choosing movies because they keep giving him more bang for his buck. Well, up to a point.
Here's the golden rule. You should keep spending your money on whichever thing has the higher happiness per dollar, until the bang for your buck is equal for both. For our buddy Jose, that magic point, that peak happiness, happens when he's bought 1 t-shirt and 6 movies. At that exact point, the last dollar he spent on a t-shirt gave him the exact same satisfaction as the last dollar he spent on movies. Perfection.
So how does this simple model about a guy named Jose apply to the real world? Well, it's the foundation for how entire markets work, especially when things like prices and our incomes start to change.
For instance, when the price of something goes up, it actually does 2 things. First, sure, it makes other stuff look more attractive. But second, and this is more subtle, it just plain makes you feel poorer. A higher price literally shrinks your buying power. Economists call this the income effect, and it forces you to completely rerun that bang for your buck calculation across your entire budget.
So far, we've kind of assumed that Jose is a perfectly rational calculator, like a little robot. But are we really like that? I mean, are you? This is where behavioral economists come in and say, hold on, To truly understand choice, you have to factor in the weird emotional quirks of the human brain. A couple of absolute legends in this field, Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, discovered something incredible about us. They found that we feel the pain of losing a dollar more than twice as intensely as we feel the pleasure of gaining one. This is called loss aversion, and it explains why we often make choices just to avoid a loss, even if it's not the most financially logical thing to do. And here's another fantastic human quirk, something called mental accounting. This is our habit of putting money into different imaginary buckets in our heads. Now, rationally, a dollar is a dollar, right? But we just don't treat them all the same. Found money, like a $20 bill on the street, feels totally different than the money you earned. Vacation money feels different from rent money.
And you see this play out all the time. Here's a perfect and kind of painful example. A completely rational person would immediately use the money in their low-interest savings account to pay off their high-interest credit card debt. But tons of people don't. Why? Because taking money from the emergency savings bucket feels like a loss, and we are hardwired to avoid that feeling, even if it literally costs us $110 a year.
Okay, we've got our tools, we've got the rational model for maximizing our happiness, and we've got the very human biases that make us, well, us. It's time to go back and solve that mystery from the beginning. So that one category where spending didn't just survive, but surged during the worst economic downturn in generations was higher education. People were spending more money on college and university.
That's right, a massive 18% increase in college enrollment in the United States. So while people were cutting back on pretty much everything else, they chose to invest in school. How on earth does that make any rational sense?
Well, it all comes down to a really powerful idea called opportunity cost. See, the price of going to college isn't just the tuition, it's also the income you're giving up by not working. But during a deep recession, when unemployment is sky high, that lost income is suddenly zero or pretty close to it. All of a sudden, the real cost of education plummets, making it the single best bang for your buck investment you can make for your future.
And look, the data absolutely backs this up. It's not just a theory. This chart shows a crystal clear link. The more education you have, the higher your earnings are, and the lower your chance of being unemployed is. Faced with a really tough economy, people made a profoundly logical choice to invest in their single most valuable asset, themselves.
So it turns out, every choice we make, big or small, is this amazing mix of cold, hard logic and the very human biases that make us who we are. We're all trying to get the most bang for our buck, but we're also wired to fear loss and to put our money into all these little mental buckets. So now that you know the rules of the game, the real question is, what's the next big decision you're going to make?